Hello, everyone. It's Mandela Schumacher Hodge Dixon here. I'm representing Founder Jim, but I am so honored to be interviewing the one, the only Brandon Bryant, founder of Harlem
Thank you. You're so kind.
Oh, I know. We are going to allow people to join, and I know people got off work, you're making the transition, you're finishing up dinner, you're putting the kids down, whatever you're doing, just make yourself at home, pull up a nice water bottle or a cup of coffee. I come equipped for all of my live sessions. But again, we welcome you tonight. We're going to be talking about something incredibly close to my heart and also Brandon's, and so important, which is founder's mentality. So again, make yourself comfortable, say hello in the chat. You're going to find two sections at the bottom. Look at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's a chat box. There's also a Q&A box. They serve two different purposes. The chat is to chat it up. This is where you say, hey, I am Mandela. I'm calling in from Oakland, California. The best thing that happened to me today was the snuggles with my little 7-month-old daughter, right? So tell us who you are, where you are dialing in from, and the best thing to happen to you in the last 24 hours. We're going to start this with some positive energy. So Brandon, sit tight. We're going to give people another 30 seconds or so to get settled. And as a friendly reminder, this is also live streaming on YouTube. So make sure you share the link with the homies. We are going to have some of our wonderful associates over at the 40 series who are going to be dropping in this information in the chat. Again, this is available to anybody. So make sure you're letting your friends know that this is live streaming on YouTube. H-Town in the building. Hi, Cody. Let me go check over chat to see who's in the building. Hi, Cody. Tell us what was the best thing to happen to you in the last 24 hours? We need some positive energy because, you know, we're here to get the mind right. And it all starts with your perspective, but I'm not going to jump ahead of what Brandon's going to share. All right.
I love that.
All right. Just a couple more. Tiffany from Philly. Hey, oh, you survived. That's a 3-hour power shortage. Okay. And then we have Marcellus, Oakland. Hey, Oakland in the house. You have a new partnership. Congratulations. Lorenzo from Virginia. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm on the East Coast. I know Brandon's over there right now. Who else?
Wow, I did not know you were Midwest.
Oh, Midwest. I'm Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm East Coast.
You know.
You consider that Midwest?
you guys play. Pittsburgh is their big rivals are Cleveland Browns.
Of course, you know, but we're stealing.
So that's why I call it Midwest. That's why I call it Midwest.
Check the receipts. You know who wins that rivalry every year. All right, Lauren from Maryland. Hello. The best thing that happened to you was celebrate your youngest nephew's birthday. Oh, you did a video call.
Wow.
All right, let us know which one works. Is it FaceTime? Is it Facebook? Is it Zoom? I'm looking for great things. Never eat alone. Hi, Lennox. All right, we're going to get started because Brandon's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm 3 hours behind him. So we want to make sure we get him in his best prime hours before he starts heading to bed. So again, just as a friendly reminder, you are here because Toasted Life is bringing about the 40 series. And today we're going to have a conversation about founder's mentality. It's a conversation on mindset, the attitudes, the behaviors that are vital for sustained growth in business and life. If you don't know me, my name is Mandela S.H. Dixon. I'm the CEO of a company called Founder Gym. We train underrepresented founders all over the world on how to build successful businesses. And it is my honor, my privilege to be here and facilitate this conversation. So without any further hesitation, I want to let you know how it's about to go down in these next 56 minutes or so. So first, I'm just going to introduce a little bit of the background of Toasted Life, 40 series, and of course, our esteemed guest, Brandon Bryant. Then I'm going to facilitate a set of questions. So you all submitted questions in advance. Thank you so much. And we have used those to basically craft where we want to take this conversation. But don't worry, I'm still going to open it up to you. So we're going to reserve, say, the last 15 to 20 minutes of this conversation for your questions that come up real time. So remember, that Q&A box you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, make sure when I give you the prompt, drop your questions in there. No questions are off limits. One of my favorite lines is, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you hungry, you better ask the question, okay? Because we're here to feed you tonight, feed you all the gems. All right, so without any further hesitation, let's go. You ready, Brandon?
Yeah, I was looking at the chat. Someone's from Cleveland and they're Browns fans. So
Hey, oh, Colorado's in the house. My grandmother lives in Lafayette. My uncle and aunt live in Longmont. Hello, Colorado. Oh, United Kingdom. We just went international, folks. Okay, if anyone else is international outside of the United States, make sure you let us know. We want to shout you out. Okay, so Toasted Life is a lifestyle curation brand that builds community and produces unique events and experiences for people of color. One of the programs that Toasted Life runs under their umbrella of programming is the 40 series. Now we are moving this online. This is super exciting and I'm honored to be here. So the 40 series is a multidisciplinary speaker series and community building program. So think like 40 under 40 mindset designed to expand growth through inspiration and action. Toasted Life hosted talented thought leaders from various backgrounds. Obviously, that's why Brandon's here, to provide insights and perspectives through craft, career, and community-based discussions. So thank you again to Toasted Life for sponsoring the 40 series and having us here. So let's dive into Brandon, who we came to see tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about Brandon. He's going to blush and all. That's okay. He deserves it. He got many receipts. So Brandon is a venture partner at Harlem Capital. How many of you have heard of Harlem Capital? Shout them out in the chat. Let me know what you've read about them, what you know about them. Give them some love in the chat. So Brandon is a content creator. Anyone follow him on Instagram? Wall Street Paper. If you don't, you're missing out. So go follow him. So he's a content creator who tells stories about business and culture through an entrepreneurial lens. He's also the co-founder of Harlem Capital, an early stage venture capital fund focused on investing in companies started by people of color and women with the purpose of changing the face of entrepreneurship. Look at that. So Brandon, we are so excited to have you here. Are you ready to start answering some questions?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Thank you for everyone who's joined. I see you guys rolling in and pretty heavy in the chat. So I'm pumped for this.
Awesome. So one of the rules I have is that I ask everybody, if you're going to show up, be present, not just physically. Close out your tabs, put your phone on silence. Brandon is about to bring it. So if you want to make sure you get the best out of this experience, please mute the rest of your life so you can turn this on high volume. All right, let's go. So Brandon, where we want to start, and a lot of people submitted questions, is people are fascinated by you, right? Like, who are you? Where do you come from? How did you become who you are? So one question at a time. Why don't you take us back to your childhood? Where did you grow up?
So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Twinsburg and Bedford. If anyone knows Cleveland, I'm from Twinsburg and Bedford, and I'm just a Midwest boy. My mother was a single mother, and she just taught me hard work. She was always working. She still works quite heavy right now, even though she has no one to take care of. But always just learn hard work from her.
All right. And so how did you make the jump then from growing up with a hardworking mother in the Midwest, right, in Cleveland, to going all the way to venture capital? We need you to fill in the gaps for us.
Yeah. So I'll fill in that. So from Cleveland, kind of went to Ohio State and study economics there. And then actually during that time, I was in 2 minority leadership programs that were kind of national. One's called MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow. And then the second one is SEO, Sponsors of Educational Opportunities. And that's actually where I met Henri and Jared, my business partners. So Henri was at Northwestern, Jared was at Wharton. And so we kind of just stayed in contact that entire time. So we interned together as sophomores and juniors, and then we all went full time in New York together. And Henri and I were roommates for 4 years, and we worked at Bank of America for 2 of those 4 years. So we were pretty, thick as thieves, if you will. And that was when we first met, was back in 2011. So almost going on our 10-year anniversary of knowing all of each other. So fast forward, after 2 years, maybe almost 3 years of doing investment banking of all of us, we started to want to kind of invest our money. We wanted to be responsible Black men and invest the money that we were making. And we started to look at real estate. We started to look at small business. And then we also started to look at startups. And what we see, no matter what the asset class, we didn't see any people of color or women. So we wanted to dig in there. And then we thought that people of color and women tend to be at the earliest stages of investing. So that's why we started to think about startups and founders there. And then we kind of dug into the idea of like, why don't people of color and women receive capital? What are the stats? And so about 100+ billion goes to venture each year, and less than 3 or 4% of that go to people of color and women, despite people of color and women being about 70+% of the population. So to us, finance guys, if you will, we've seen a huge market inefficiency, right? So we were saying like the most innovative industry in the most innovative country, and the lion's share of that country doesn't receive any of the capital. So there's a lot of opportunity to make some alpha and also to do good as well. Like, so we could do good and do well at the same time. And so we started to invest in these early stage companies with our own capital. And as we started to find people who fit our thesis, we started to fundraise for this first fund. So the first fund, we closed in November of 2019. It took us about 18 months to fundraise. Target was 25 million. We ended up raising 40 million. So we were oversubscribed. And I'll stop there. I've been saying quite a bit.
Oh, we're taking notes. I mean, I think the last thing you were talking about was you basically, when you said oversubscribed, for people who don't know what that means, that basically is like Brandon and his firm, his co-founders who were building Harlem Capital, went out to raise capital themselves from people such as called LP, limited partners. And those limited partners give Harlem Capital money to then deploy into startups. And he was saying that they went out to get 20 million. They actually 2x that. They were oversubscribed to plus over north of 40 million. Is that right?
Yeah, 40.3. We keep the 40. Right, we keep the 0.3 in there.
I'm just going to cut right through, because I think a lot of people who are probably tuning in either want to be an investor like you, or they want to be a founder and they want to receive your investment, or they just want to be great and like your Instagram account. So whether you fall in buckets, I think this question is relevant, which is, well, how did you do that? Where like a lot of people have recognized that gap in access to the capital, but it seems like you all were doing something different where you were able to have this pioneering fund, make this historic raise that's never been done before. So come on, give us the goods. How did you really do it?
Yeah, I wish it was. I mean, it's obviously easier said than done. We started Harlem Capital in the living room of Jared, my business partner, in December of 2015. And we had like order Popeyes takeout. So we started from very, very humble beginnings. And I think like you gotta kind of put your money where your mouth is, or put your value or whatever skill sets that you have where your mouth is, and start giving those things to people to build traction, to build progress. And I think one other thing is storytelling, and I think we'll definitely talk about that. But a founder, especially like a person of color or woman who gets 3 or 4% of hundreds of billions of dollars that go to venture capital each year, you have to articulate your story at such a high level, and you have to explain like a few things, like explain like kind of what is the problem that you're solving, and be like an expert on that and explain that to folks. And then you have to talk about the solution. What is the solution? Why is this groundbreaking? Why is this a 10x opportunity? And then after that, you have to explain, why are we the best people to actually be doing this? Why are we the most qualified people in the entire world to start this fund? And then the last part, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily talk about much, is why is right now the best time? Why do we have to do it this was it Thursday? Why do we have to do it this Thursday and not next Thursday? And if you can actually, as a founder, answer those, that's something great that most other people can't do. And that's probably why that separates good founders from bad founders. And so we continually started proving our own thesis and our own kind of like thought leadership. And kind of what happened after that is like people started to believe in that mission. And when you can start to get people to buy in, that's huge. When you can articulate your own vision, tell your own story, that's huge. And then eventually when you get folks like Forbes, Wall Street Journal, et cetera, kind of co-signing you, and then you get some investors co-signing you, you get founders who invested in co-signing you, you start to create a moat. So I would just take that mentality to whatever industry or whatever product, service that you're working on. How can you get people to buy in? The first thing you got to get to buy in is yourself. Yeah. So after you get yourself to buy in, like, how do you get your team? After you get your team, how do you get your clients? After you get your clients, how do you get whoever the partners to kind of elevate your message or elevate your brand? How do you get them to jump in? And that could be from marketing and media, that could be from a financial standpoint, et cetera.
Wow. I hope you all are taking notes. I dropped in a couple of mine in the chat, but Brandon's basically giving you a playbook. And it's so interesting because as I'm listening to him answer the question I asked, which is, how did you really raise the capital that you needed to build Harlem Capital so that you could be venture capitalists and invest in companies? And his playbook was talking about reps. Like, we've been doing this since 2015, right? Like, and then also the traction. So you did it, you started investing, and what were the results? What were the returns on those investments that you could actually show to LP saying, here's some receipts, here's what we can do if you just give us more, right? Imagine what we could build together. And then you also talked about why now, the importance of storytelling, and so many of the skills that it requires to be a great investor, specifically if you're trying to build your own fund, are the exact same skills that you need to be a great founder. So this is a perfect segue into the founder's mentality. So this is why a lot of people showed up tonight. And you clearly see a lot of founder pitches, right? You clearly also work directly with founders in your portfolio and probably beyond. I want to know, what are the key differences in the mentality between the founders that are thriving, living their best life, making successful companies, and the ones who aren't?
Right. So what I was explaining about the like those four pillars, that's definitely it. Like, can you first and foremost answer those questions? Like, what is the problem? Can you have enough experience or enough scar tissue to understand what the problem is? And then can you build the right solution? Can you convince folks that you are actually the right person? And can you actually articulate the story to understand why it's the right time? But also, can you just do what you said you were going to do? I think what happens is, once you have an idea, you get it. Yeah, do what you say you're going to do. I think the best founders, not only do they know how to answer those four questions, like whimsically, where they take you off into this opportunity of like a promised land, if you will, they are able to actually do what they say they're going to do. So they understand their financials, they understand their like supply, they understand this X, Y, and Z, and they understand why they're going to get here, and then they actually do it. And what actually happens, the best founders outperform their own kind of like budget or their own predictions. And that's the point. You gotta you gotta know how to manage your company, know how to manage your employees, know how to manage your investors, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you have to be one of the best managers. And I think people, when they want to become a founder, CEO, what have you, they think that they're doing this because they don't want to work for somebody else, or they're just tired of this person taking orders from this person. And that's not the best idea of becoming a founder. The best idea of becoming a founder is because you are actually going to supply people with opportunities. If I'm a CEO, I'm not hiring you to do exactly what I say. I'm hiring you to tell me what to do, because you have specific skill sets and talents that are going to help me or help us get to the promised land. And if I can put you in the best position to get there, that's going to be great. And so the best founders hire like, I guess they're just like A+ hire, because I think that's the thing that sucks, is that founders think that they're going to do it all themselves. And unfortunately, it's a team sport if you're thinking that way. So I think if you can answer all those questions, you can get people to jump on your team, and you can articulate that story, and you can show progress and actually do what you say you're going to do, you are going to be head above shoulders of all other folks.
Awesome. Do what you said you're going to do. One of the most underestimated qualities of successful people. Like,
Yeah.
promise, over deliver. Under promise, over deliver. You will make a reputation for yourself that precedes any introduction that you would ever need. The hard part is, though, Brandon, how do you do that? What if people have a history of not doing what they say they're going to do? How do you actually make the mental shift of like, I'm done being that version of myself. I'm ready to go to the next level and to have integrity. And to me, integrity means exactly what you said. Do what you say you're going to do. So how do you actually change?
Yeah, so you're basically talking about discipline, you're talking about obedience. And I think you're getting to the point of like habits. So folks, you got to get to the point that's like where you break the straw that broke the camel's back, where you're fed up. So go ahead, get down on yourself, do all that stuff. Try to keep it to 24 hours max and get fed up. And then kind of like put yourself in a position where you're going to vow to do better. Put yourself in a position where you're going to start small steps, small routines. There's a great author, James Clear, and he has a book called Atomic Habits. And he says that we are all casting votes every single day to become the people that we want to become. So think about it that way. Like you can literally cast votes each day to become the person you want to be. So that maybe that means waking up a little bit earlier. Maybe that means like having a morning routine. The best morning routine starts the night before. A lot of people don't know about that. So the night before, I try to myself write down all the things I got to do for the next day. And I usually now I'm doing 2 days. So I do the next 2 days in advance. And you can even kind of start lining stuff up to make it really easy for yourself. Draft all the emails that you got to send out in the morning so you can get some wins. Read your goals. First and foremost, put down your goals. Figure those goals out and start to find like partners or people in your community, whether that be friends, colleagues, mentors, etc., who can keep you accountable. People who you admire, people who this, who that. And even if you can't, find people digitally who can keep you accountable. And I swear, just do one small thing at a time. And the last point I'll say is people may find it really hard to do it on the business front instantaneously. So something I did way back when is do it in your personal life. So become, for me, a better son, become a better brother, become a better uncle, become a better friend. And then go to my skills, become a better listener, become a better writer, become a better public speaker, become a better person who can introduce folks. And if you do that in your everyday life, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, which is crazy. And this last quote, all the quotes are coming to me right now. Your life is just a physical representation of what's going on in your brain. So if what's going on out here is a little tough, what's going on here is probably tough as well. And so let that be just like a reminder of how the world works. And the reason why I think this is so true, you got to think about like architecture, art, or companies. All these things were created in someone's mind, and then they brought it to fruition. And if they can do that, and they're just human beings like yourself, I believe that all of us can do it. And I think so. It's like this whole game. I don't want to talk too much about investing today. I want to talk about mindset, because investing, business, consumer, B2B, whatever, is a mind game. Life is a mind game. And if we can win that first, I think we'll be able to do better or do great and excellent and exceed expectations at everything else.
I can't write fast enough. I can't write fast. If you see me, praise, it's because I literally feel I wrote this in the chat, and I don't know, you guys. I'm looking for engagement here. Let's all make sure this is a collective discussion and feedback, because you said so many things in that last riff. You talked about business is a team sport. You talked about the importance of setting goals. You talked about how it all starts in our brain. You talked about life is a mind game. And I'm just like, is he reading my diary? And it's crazy. So many of the most successful people that I've crossed paths with, we all kind of have this similar blueprint of how we navigate life, and the rules that we've understood are the rules of success. And so I really do hope people are paying attention and listening even between the lines of what he's saying. And hopefully I can do a good job of making sure you're picking up what he's putting down. So I want to touch on something that I think is incredibly important, because in my line of work, one of the biggest barriers, even beyond one's own perspective and knowing that life is a mind game, is this concept of a team sport. Beyond just business, I think life and success in life is a team sport, your personal life and your professional life. And but I also see a lot of fear coming up, or a lot of a scarcity mindset, as well as feeling a lot of ego too, of thinking I can do it by myself, or I don't trust other people. I can't tell you how many founders come to me and they're solo founders without any teammates because they don't trust. So what do you have to say to people who aren't really bought into the team sport concept of success?
Wow, you said a lot right there. And even sometimes like when you can't build a team, just to that last point, you can't build a team, you can't find a co-founder, you can't do this, you can't do that. These are all red flags to investors, that this person, people don't want to work with this person. This person is not a great teammate. So not necessarily saying everyone has to have a co-founder, but if you got to be able to attract really quality people. And I think that all comes from working on yourself. And so Jim Rohn, really big time, kind of like public speaker from way back in the day, from cassette tapes, was a mentor to Tony Robbins. Said a quote that changed my life when I was like going through a tough time. And he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And I was basically explaining that to an extent in the last answer of doing the small things every day in your regular life, and then those transfer to everything in your work life. But if you can't buy into making yourself better, and you can't buy into helping others, adding value, impacting, you're not gonna get anything out of this life. You get in, it's so funny, you get in what you put in. You literally, or like you get out what you put in. You can't get out of this life. It's so funny. I was hearing this the other day. Someone's like, you can never get out of this life more than what you put in. And I recently have like hired a business coach pre-COVID, and it was like a really smart decision for me to stay accountable. But we were talking the other day, and he was saying when you create value, you get to reap the harvest. And that stuck to me so much. We're all trying to get to the harvest. We all want to reap the harvest, but you have to create value. And then the last part I'll think about is more of a Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill thought process. Whatever you want, you have to do something in exchange, right? So like, I pay for ice cream, I pay for this. If an investor is going to give me his money, I have to return it 2-3x, right? And what I'm actually talking about with Harlem Capital, we had to return 2-3x. And so nothing in this life is technically free, if you will. There's always a give and a take. And if you are focused on giving first and adding first and impacting and et cetera, you will not have to worry about earning power. And that's my life philosophy. Never worry about earning power when I'm giving more than others, when I'm adding outsized value, undeniable value.
So are you saying, Brandon, it's not just about working hard and hustling and grinding your way to success? Because I know I'm on Instagram.
Table stakes. That's table stakes. It's honestly table stakes now.
The hustle. And it's like, I'm actually like, it doesn't have to be that hard. You need to be a little bit more strategic. So what do you want to say to the grinders?
Work smart, not harder. Not hard. You gotta work smart, not hard, man. Don't burn yourself out. Because you gotta think about all the extremely talented entrepreneurs. They do multiple things at once, and they happen to be great at all these things. How is it? Is because they're working smart. It's because they built teams. It's because they have processes. It's because those things run their lives, and they actually just show up. They just make sure they're working on themselves. You think about LeBron, and we're going to get to that point when we're talking about people and founders that I admire. Think about LeBron. LeBron just literally has to play basketball. He has this great group of people around him who, if he plays basketball to his highest potential, they continually get to crush it in media, in investing, in sports world, because of what he's doing. And so think about that as your CEO. If I can actually laser focus on the thing that I'm supposed to be best positioned, created, talent-wise to do, I can now free up other people to do the things that they need to do. And we can actually, to your point, if you want to go fast, man, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You know what I'm saying? Go together. Teamwork makes the dream work. I know I'm saying a lot of things that you might have heard before, but you have to have people who sharpen you. You have to have people who challenge you. You have to have people who keep you accountable. You have to have people who call you out. You should have people who know your dirty laundry so that they can actually help you wash it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm getting personal here, but like, you know what I'm saying? But I'm getting personal here, but all that stuff, if you haven't noticed, all these personal things are now mixing and mingling with business today. And they're just getting caught up in stuff and breaking up deals. and they're breaking up opportunities, they're breaking up liquidity events, they're breaking up generational flow of cash. And we already haven't had cash in generations before us. So we don't need to have any kind of like pillars, landmines, brick walls that we need to run through to go get this bag.
Hey, get the bag, hashtag. That's still my theme of 2020. I'm pandemic proof. I don't know about y'all. I'm pandemic proof.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So so Brandon, you dropped a lot of quotes. You dropped some books. You dropped some superstars like LeBron,
Yeah.
some motivational people. So you clearly have your own university of personal development that you've been putting yourself through. And I'm curious, what
Yeah.
kind of books have you been reading? What kind of podcasts have you been listening to? If you can give people your
Mm-hmm.
best resources, and even if you want to reiterate some of the ones, but this is the time, everyone,
Mm-hmm.
take notes. This is what should be on your Amazon purchase order list tonight.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And I have some books over here, so I'll bring them so people can screenshot stuff if they want to.
Right.
So I have Think and Grow Rich. So Think and Grow Rich is a really great book. This book kind of talks about like, it's like your mindset of around like, why should I get the things that I want to get? And then also, what do I have to do to get them? What type of person do I have to become to obtain them? So this is a really good book for that. And it has like affirmations that you can say, helps you write affirmations that you can say every day to kind of like emotionalize and visualize things. And then I have You're a Badass at Money Making, Jen Sincero. She has a lot of You're a Badass is an entire kind of like theme of books. But this one about money making changes your mindset around money. I think as folks of color and women, we've had hard times with money, even before we knew what money was. And this book really talks about changing your relationship with money. And she has even parts in here about like how you write a love letter to money, telling money how you really feel about it. And these love letters are literally reminds me of like asking someone to be my Valentine in 7th grade. Like people have traumatic experiences around money. They don't want to look at their bank account. They don't want to, match their 401k. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do all these things to actually like systematize, create processes, and build for the future because their relationship with money is non-existent and it's fearful and it's a scarcity mindset, if you will. So read this book, and she also has something in there like put money everywhere in your house so you know you're attracted. I have money just sitting around everywhere in my house, so I just attracted it. And then I got 2 more books. Another book is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. The title is whatever, but Ramit Sethi, that's my guy. He teaches you how to automate all your expenses, where it's just like literally coming out of your account every month. You check on it once or twice a month and you just let it sit. I redid everything, had a high yield interest bearing bank account, got my IRA, got my 401k going, all these things. And it's all auto. I don't look at it, I don't touch it, I don't think about it, and I don't have no stress about it. And then this last one is for everybody. The Truth About Men. This is my boy, Devon Franklin. Yo, from a male's perspective, there's something we need to really understand. Like we are chasing the wrong things. We are chasing all the wrong things. And I just think we're just doing it wrong. So Devon Franklin, he knows what the heck he's doing. He's doing it right. And also I think on the women's side, it tells you what to look out for. And that's in business and that's in your regular relationships. Again, no matter what you're doing in business, your personal friend relationships, your family relationships, and then even your I guess like your relationship with your significant other, that stuff is all blending together these days.
Ah, my goodness. I just had my own little notes pop up. I was taking notes. So I've read the first one, Think and Grow Rich, but I have not read the other 3. And it's interesting because there was a money theme. Did anyone else catch that? So I asked him what's on your bookshelf when it comes to mentality, but you really doubled down on money. And I do think, and I personally have lived this, had a very poor relationship with money growing up. I was bankrupt. My family, we had the government garnished my parents' wages. I had a very hectic. And so I had to get myself out of that to get to where I am today. And I'm so interested in why you think the relationship with money is such an important aspect that especially our communities should be focused on.
Yeah, I think I would say if I go out, I don't know the real answer here, but I would say it's inherited. It's folks like us tend not to speak about money, maybe because we haven't generated any money, right? And when I think about my background and my growing up, we don't tell the stories about our great uncles or our great aunts or whoever who was doing this and doing that. I have to ask my mom all these different things, and she doesn't even know them about my grandparents or their great grandparents. So I think it was just something that is never talked about. And still, even to this day, there's people who are making quite a bit of money and they never, ever talk about it. So I would say start creating conversations in your friend groups and talking about things that can help improve each other's lives. Like, for example, for Harlem Capital, we're talking about everything. We're talking about healthcare. We talk about personal relationships. We talk about what are we using on an investing side. I mean, we talk about politics, and not all of us see, honestly, a lot of us see very differently in all aspects. And I think it's great to be able to sit in a room with people and get those different viewpoints and to do this at a younger age. Because once you get to the age where you have a ton of children who are like middle school, high school, college, like you would like to at least have like 10, 15, 20, 30 years of experience of doing this to pass it down to them. Because I'm in a decade mindset or a generational mindset with money or with generational wealth, right? Like I want my great, great, great grandchildren to know that Grandpa B, he really took care of us and he was the person who started X, Y, and Z in our lineage. And we do these same things each year because these are the traditions that he started. We have trust, we have this, we have that. He has a will. Like you want to do things to actually give away. And I think that's something that we honestly probably feel like we don't have enough to give away yet. But if you get to that abundance mentality, I swear you'll start to receive and attract so much that you do have to give away.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with everything you're saying. And a lot of people, when they look at even what I do with Founder Gym and teaching underrepresented founders how to raise capital from angels, accelerators, venture capitalists, they're like, oh,
Mhm.
Mandela's just teaching people how to raise. And I'm like, no, 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 homie. What I'm doing is I'm teaching people financial literacy and I'm teaching people how
Mhm.
to use business as an asset to create generational wealth. Right. So this is come on, y'all better get into it. I'm not
Big
playing.
picture.
Big
People
picture.
got to
Oh,
get the big
got some
picture.
things cooking up, so people better stay tuned. But exactly, I really do feel like our generation is probably going to be amongst the first to really break away from kind of like
Mhm.
you said narratives and even systems of oppression that our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, I mean, we know how this country was started and we have
Mhm.
international folks, so I'm sure you all have your own stories of oppression around the world, but this is our collective narrative. And what are we doing to break it? Right. And I think starting with showing up at events like this is one of the best things you can do because you're exposing yourself outside of your immediate network to other people who maybe are 5, 10 steps ahead of you. And you can start
Mhm.
to decode, reverse engineer how they got to where they are. So again, I commend you all for being here on a Thursday night. And Brandon, you're bringing
Yeah.
it. We're going to keep bringing it. And everybody, we
Yeah.
have,
And to that point, oh, go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, 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 please. This
I was
is your
gonna say, I was just gonna say to that point, like people always leave gems and they always leave a trail. And it's great to follow folks. There's so many people who are my mentor who don't know they're my mentor. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many people who I follow, who I admire, who I aspire to be, who I read up on and like watch videos of just because I want to get into their mindset and not necessarily have exactly what they have, but I want to be in that same ballpark. I want to be in that same deal room, the same deal rooms that they may be in, or I want to be able to just like have the partnerships of that level that they may have. And that all comes from really watching, learning, iterating, and focus on execution. Execution is the key. I think that was something we talked about at the beginning. It's like doing what you say you're going to do, which basically means execution. That is what separates every single business apart. Business A through business Z are set apart by execution. And how fast can you execute? How fast can you pivot? How fast can you be adaptable? How fast can you be innovative? How fast can you scale. And if you can't do any of those things, you shouldn't be a founder. You should go join a team. Being a number 7, being a number 10,
He said it to you.
being being a number 7 or being a number 10 at Facebook, you still got good money. Being a number 7 or being a number 10 at Harlem Capital, you're still good. So I would say, like, don't run yourself into a brick wall because you believe you have to be this thing that everyone else is chasing. You could be a great growth marketer. You could be a great COO. You could be a great product manager. You could be a great engineer. You could be a great what have you, freelancer. You could be a great all these things. There's nothing wrong in playing a great role, but if you play a great role that's undeniable on the value side, again, earning power is nothing to you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I feel like a bobblehead over here with just me affirming you with every little yes, yes, yes. Seriously, it's there's so much you said there. I think one of the things that I oftentimes recommend to people is you have to have a conversation with yourself. You really need to stop even looking externally to everybody else telling you who you are, who you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to go, how much money you're supposed to make. Like, you decide what your success blueprint is, what is on it, what matters to you, what is your personal legacy going to be. And that's what you should strive for, irrespective of what other people think. So like you were saying, it's like, figure out what's your zone of genius. It may not be a founder role. It may be a co-founder role, or a, like you said, employee number 7 or 8. All of those are fine. But I think that people get caught up in the glitz and the glamour and the idea of being a CEO, the idea of being an entrepreneur. And they have no idea it's a grind.
Yeah,
It's a work. And
a
not
lot of responsibility. It's your baby. You got a baby. You have another child in your hands.
Yes.
And you have to make sure it grows up, it gets its nutrition, it has daycare, it has et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and there is no.
And I know you can talk to that.
Yeah, and I got a real baby too, and a company baby. But there's no shame in like bowing out of a path that you were on. And I think that's important for people to be able to like pivot and to do something else that's more aligned to who you are. Because when you are aligned, like, it doesn't even feel like work. You're just so pulled by your passion for what you're doing. So, not to digress, I want to remind everybody that we have about 18 minutes left to go. I know time flies when Brandon's on.
Wow.
I know, right? So what that means is that you need to start getting your questions ready. I see some questions from like Priyanka coming through. Remember, there is a specific section at the bottom of your Zoom called Q&A. In that section, start dropping in your questions that you want me to ask Brandon on your behalf. So again, that was just a little warning. We're going to move into audience questions in just a bit. But I want to ask Brandon a couple more questions. And this is in relation to, listen, it's April 30th, 2020. I remember New Year's Eve of last year. I was just like everyone, posting my big 2020. This is my new year, new decade, better me. And then the pandemic hit. And I'm like, what? So a lot of people are feeling discouraged. A lot of people are like, should I even still build a business right now? Like there's a lot of fear. When you talk about like abundance mentality, it's opposite of a fear mentality. So how do people maintain an abundance mentality during a pandemic? And specifically if they're interested in building a business?
Loaded question here. I think first and foremost, you got to create some type of routine, whether that's like, especially in the pandemic, like you have to wake up and shower and shave and do all these things. You have to do these things to act as if you're going to go to an office. So get into such a good routine. And then for me, like, I rewrote my goals. So it has that fresh ink on those. And I turn my goals into affirmations. So I say them in the morning and I kind of visualize where I want to go. And I like emotionalize that feeling. And it gets me pumped to be like, okay, I know I woke up this morning because I had to get these things done. So I think that's like a ground, a foundation, and then start to build processes that can be weekly or monthly for you to check in with folks, for you to catch up with individuals who may be in the same business as you, or people who are in the same industry, and just keep your ear to the ground. Like, that's the minimum. There are going to be a lot of people who create very bad habits from COVID-19. And when COVID is over, they're still going to have very bad habits. I just want people to take that in. So your job right now, table 6, is create good habits. Create good habits. Understand what you're getting out of bed for, what you're waking up for. and be on the offense. This is the opportunity. We told this to some of our founders. If you have cash, for our founders, like you have cash, you have this, you have that, use the things that you have to an advantage. So as a founder, and whichever you're going to do, use what you have to an advantage. Take up market share. There are going to be a lot of people who are not able to do things right now, but that may mean you have free time to do something. So go out there and do that, take up market share. And then other people are even offering things for free. So, hey, you know, I know everyone wants to get paid, but some things can actually be free, like a free webinar, a free this, a free that, a free consultation. Start offering things for free and get people in the top of your funnel. And then another thing to do is content. Folks, I said this on Twitter. If you ain't creating content, if you're not doing a new project, if you're not learning a new language, like, I don't know what you're doing. And I understand you can take time for yourself, and some people don't want to do this. But if you want to be successful post-COVID, you got to be really fine-tuning your skill set right now. And I'm just talking about building muscle memory around whatever you're doing. Think as if you have to go from lifting 100 pounds to 200 pounds, right? How do you get there? You got to get up to 105, then you got to get up to 110. So take it step by step. But once you get up to 200 pounds, what happens? You have to keep bench pressing. You got to keep lifting, because if you don't, you lose that muscle memory, you lose that muscle mass. So this is a continual thing. So to Mandela's point earlier, talking about like having a talk with yourself and doing this and doing that, these things are continual. Get in routines where you feel comfortable checking in with yourself, checking in with others, being uncomfortable, reading this, reading that, like just put yourself in another place and have certain ways to hold yourself accountable. And if you can, create streaks or create habit trackers. So like mark down an X every week that you read a book for at least 3 days, and then try to create a streak and see how many times you can read a book each day in a row. Just gamify it if you can.
Awesome. Oh, wear me out. I feel like this is a workout right here. I thought I ran the gym.
We're in the founder gym right now.
I know we got Brandon Gym, we got 40 Series Gym, Toasted Life in the house. Thank you so much to Warren and Matt for organizing this. Yeah. So it's time for audience Q&A. So what I'm going to ask of Brandon is I'm going to ask him to keep it spiffy, direct answers, so we can get to as many as possible, if that's okay. You're doing a great job, by the way. So the people who've asked questions so far, I'm over in the Q&A section. So remember, move your questions from chat into Q&A, because that's where I am. It's the bottom of your Zoom screen. So we have questions from Cody, Cyrell, I hope I'm pronouncing that, Anonymous, Maggie, Lennox. All right, let me see a question that I think a lot of people would be interested in. Here's a good one. So from Maggie Williams, she says, Brandon, thank you so much for the conversation. This has been phenomenal. What was one of the major make or break moments in your life that really made the lights come on for you? Like when you said that fed up moment, or that I'm done with who I used to be and I'm ready to be who I'm meant to be. Like, give us an example of when that happened for you.
That is a good question. Make or break moment. Well, I think there was one, it might even been back in college, where so I went to a school called Bowling Green State University, and then I transferred to Ohio State and just spent the rest of my career there. But long story short, I went there with my best friend from high school, and we were roommates, and I was just terrible at school. I had like a 2.7 GPA, and he knew me very well. So after my freshman year, he just like sits me down, tells me who I am, and he doesn't do it politely at all. So you got to have a few real ones, maybe even your roommates, who keep you accountable. And so he kind of turned my life around in terms of like, someone spoke life into me, if you will. So basically create a circle of people who can speak life into you. And then what happened was I turned around, got a 3.9 GPA that next semester. And then we transferred to Ohio State together. And within 6 to 12 months of being at LSU, I got my first internship in York. But this all happened from actually listening to someone tell me about myself, and actually taking that feedback in and trying to articulate it into good habits, and then having that person keep me accountable about it. And we became like study buddies. We became people who would do our resume work together, people who were doing interview prep together. And then eventually we just became really good at acquiring the things that we wanted to acquire.
That's great. Oh, you got me going. Yeah. So opening yourself to critical feedback. I'll never forget the day Michael Seibel, the CEO of Y Combinator, one of the only Black founders to sell his company for like $1 billion or more, and he tore my
Hmm.
idea apart. Like he kicked,
Yeah.
it felt like he kicked me in my stomach, right? Like I was just
Hmm.
so not ready for that real talk, but exposing myself to his critical feedback was the best thing that ever happened, like one of the best things ever happened in my
Hmm.
professional career, because it forced me to look at my blind spots. It forced me to hear critique that nobody else in my circle was telling me, right? And so I actually felt
Hmm.
like, as hard as it was to digest, it was what I needed in that moment to go to the next level. So yes, open yourself to
Yeah.
critical feedback. Next question, Brandon from Heavenly. This is a good one. A lot of people were gearing up to launch, and then the pandemic happened. There's a lot of noise
Hmm.
now of everyone's like, look at me, I have something to sell. Look at me, I have something to sell, or I have value to give. Like, should people still try to launch right now, or should they like wait? Like, people think it's too crowded, too noisy. What's your advice?
This is a good question. I think if you had a timeline that was supposed to launch, say May 30th, and you're on track to that timeline, you hit all the things you wanted to hit, you should still launch May 30th. If you're just working on an idea and you're just, bumping around on it and stuff like that, not time for you to launch. Either way, for both sides, I think it's time for you to really fine tune whatever you're doing. Like you should be there's only certain times where you should have these blinders on and be laser focused. And I think this is the time to do that because everyone's going to be watching if you're going to launch during COVID. And what happens is you might see a spike because people aren't doing much, but you want to keep that up post COVID. And that's by just making your product more sticky, more valuable, more interactive, more shareable, et cetera. And so whatever you do launch and whatever you do create, you have to nurture that community. So I think that can be through content, whether that's through written, whether that's through podcasts, whether that's through customer testimonials. You have to really kind of fine tune the ecosystem that helps describe why your product is as great as it is. And if you can't do that right now, just work on that until the right time. And maybe that's at the end of COVID, maybe that's 6 months after that. But whatever you do, you have to keep working on what you're working on. I think don't stop that part.
Awesome. I love that. The foresight too of thinking what happens when shelter in place is over. Is your product still
Hmm.
relevant? That's really important. So great. So now I'm going to combine a couple because I've been going through the Q&A and it seems like Priyanka, um, where is it? Priyanka and Brett, and then there was somebody else, all had questions about being an investor. So this is going in an investor route,
Hmm.
and they're all interested in being an investor, or they are an investor, and they're curious as to how much time per week do you spend on due diligence, and what is like the make or break for you when it comes to investing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Due diligence. I mean, I would say you're always evaluating,
Oh,
So
and I'm sorry,
we
Brett,
as a
can you clarify for people what is due diligence?
Yeah. So due diligence is like when you meet a company. So as an investor meets a founder in their company and that founder's fundraising, say $1 million, and the investor wants to invest. And so that founder is going to give them all the type of information. Maybe this is in a data room, which is like a collection of everything, your financial model, your org chart, your sales script to like close clients, etc. So basically we are digging in to create a memo, which is basically a thesis on why this is a good investment. And that can take anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it can be faster, but I would say it's just roughly around 2 to 3 weeks. And you'll be having calls with customers, with other investors, with multiple people on the team. And you'll be really digging into why business A is better than all the other businesses in this category. So in terms of how much time we spend on it, I would say most of our time is actually spent on probably like sourcing and looking through deals. So that's probably like 50, 60% of our time is just like looking at deals. In terms of spending time on deals from start point to close, we'll probably do a deal like once every like 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll probably be spending out of 4 to 6 weeks, we'll spend two out of those weeks like in formal diligence on the deal. And for Harlem Capital, just like to wrap it all together, Harlem Capital early stage seed fund. We do 500,000 to $1 million into the pre-seed and seed rounds. We're industry agnostic. We don't invest in anything that's capital intensive or that you need a PhD to get up to speed on. And we're going to be doing 30 investments out of this fund, and we've already are at 15. And so we're halfway there. I think 14, 15. We're halfway there, and we have invested in or approved for investment 3 deals since COVID-19. So I just wanted to make sure I got the Harlem Capital plug in there at the end.
Hey, you better use it. So when you say 3 deals, even during the pandemic, I think this goes along with Sean's question, which he is another team member of the 40 series and Toasted Life. Shout out.
Oh, cool.
What's your prediction? And if you can keep it short, because we're running out of time. What's your prediction for what the world is going to look like after all of this, and where the most opportune business opportunities may be?
Yeah, so the world is going to go from offline to online. If you think about restaurants, if you think about healthcare, you think about just work in general, it was very archaic. It was very just like old school. So people are going to be going from offline to online, and a lot of industries are to go offline to online and become digital. And then what I think about industries that I like, HR tech. I think human capital management is always going to be an issue. It's always going to be kind of like the source of all the value in a company. Also thinking about anything that holds up the digital ecosystem. So any tools that are around that, and then think about collaboration and productivity tools or anything that's in that space. And I would just say a lot of stuff that's B2B. There's going to be a lot of businesses that sell services to each other. And if you can supply them, that's great. And as long as it's technology, that's even better, because I assume that there's going to be a lot less people in the office, or if anything, people be working from home probably 2 or 3 days out of the week, and they'll be in the office, 2 or 3 days a week. And so I think there's a whole different change around how people are going to be working. But if you can do something that's digital, that can be done anywhere, any place, anytime, and provide value, you should build a business like that.
Awesome. And then I'm just trying to see what other questions I can sneak in. And I think I'm going to go back to because this keeps coming up. People want to be investors like you. And I believe you said, like Jared, Henri, yourself, you were all deploying capital even before you kind of raised the bigger fund for Harlem.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So how does someone get started? And again, I know this is a big question, but maybe like the first, maybe 1 or 2 things they should start doing, even if it's listening to a podcast.
Yeah, so you hit it right on the nail. You hit the nail right on the head. Invest your time first. So read up on all the top articles or all the top podcasts and newsletters that you can, right? So read at, Andreessen Horowitz and what they're talking about. Read at First Round Capital. They have a lot of great content that they put out. Lair Hippo Seed Fund that puts out a lot of great content. Harlem Capital. We have an amazing newsletter, and one just went out today. We're on Substack, Harlem Capital at substack.com. You can read all of our newsletters, and then try to go into the podcast world and figure out what you can find out there. And I would start to talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues. What projects are they doing on the side? Can you lend a helping hand and really invest your time and get your hands dirty? And if you start to see some success from the value that you're adding, you might be able to start getting an opportunity to write checks for these businesses. And another way you can also do this, if you think about like crowdfunding, there's a lot of different platforms where you can invest like $100, $200, $1,000. So set aside some money. If you have some money for your Robinhood account, maybe $1,000, $5,000, set that same amount aside for your crowdfunding account. And invest in companies, angel invest, and you get to see like research and data and all these things from how these companies are run. And what you do right with little, you'll do well with much. That's how Harlem Capital, our first checks were like 10 to 15,000, maybe even 25. And then we were ambitious enough and audacious enough to say, hey, we should be writing 500,000 to $1 million. The jump from 25,000 to 500,000 to $1 million, mentally kind of crazy, if you will, but if you have the right processes, you have the right mindset, I think it's possible to get done.
I love it. You did what you said you were going to do. Even with smaller check sizes, you delivered, you executed, and because of the traction that you had and the proof, right? You were able to leverage that to then get bigger checks, and here we are today.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the last thing is document all this process, because that's how you get more deal flow and that's how you get more opportunities. I helped her, him, and him, A, B, and C, and they can vouch for me. And here's the content. Here's a podcast I did around it. Here's the Zoom I recorded about it. Here's the client that I sent their way. And then it'll be much easier to convince people because your story is preceding you, right? So I think document, don't create. Creating is tough, man, and it hurts your brain. There's a lot of decision fatigue in creating. Just document what you're doing.
Yep, exactly. Everyone's trying to get on the stages. Listen, this is your platform right here. A little smartphone.
Yeah.
Got a camera, got a microphone, got some nice portrait modes. Make it happen. All right, Brandon, it's been so wonderful. Last question is, of everything you shared tonight on April 30th, 2020, what a way to go out.
Yep.
What do you want them to remember? One thing.
The one thing I want everyone to remember, and first of all, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate you. You could have been anywhere else, but you're here with me. So I appreciate that. Here with us, if you will. You have to, that quote earlier, you have to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Even if you're a founder, like, you still have to work harder on yourself. If you can become a better person and actually find out the God-given talent and skill set that's inside you and bring that to fruition in its biggest capacity, the world is going to be a better place. Like, the world is going to be a better place because you figured out what the heck you were supposed to be doing with your life. So I want everyone to go out there and, like, ferociously go after, why am I alive? What is my value? What is my purpose? And don't, just go after, like, I like playing basketball, so I'm gonna go out there and get a job in basketball. It just might honestly be something you're good at. I'm good at storytelling. I'm good at relationships. Hey, that's why I got into the venture space. That's not a passion for me, if you will. It was my passion's now investing in people of color and women. But the point is, if you can work really great on the things that you do every day and the person you are, people want to include you on opportunities. And once you get included on those opportunities, the earning power, I'm telling you, your earning power is just going to skyrocket. So
awesome.
That's my takeaway.
Mic drop. Boom. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Everyone, give him a virtual round of applause in the chat. Pump him up. You can find him on Instagram, on Twitter, Wall Street Paper, also Harlem Capital. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter, all that good stuff. So as I wrap up, I just want to remind you, this was brought to you by Toasted Life and their 40 series. They're just getting started. So make sure you continue to subscribe to their events, their newsletters, all that good stuff. I want to remind you that this was shared on YouTube, and Matt from Toasted Life and Warren are dropping in the YouTube link. So share that with your network so other people can benefit from this. Remember, show value, right? That was one of the tips. Another thing is, make sure you follow Toasted Life on Instagram, TOSTED Life. And then lastly, we want your feedback. Please, please, please understand that we gave of ourselves to you tonight. Please give back by giving us your honest feedback. So there's a survey dropped in the chat. Just take a minute to fill it out. Be honest, be critical. We want to get better. Thank you so much for your time. Again, Brandon, thank you. Thank you, Warren and Matt and the whole Toasted Life team.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.